we don't want one great sound. We don't want a few great sounds. We want a lot of great sounds, right? All right, that makes it interesting. So, my name is Watson Wu. I am an addict. I've been an addict for a long time now. So when I see a new microphone, I want to do stuff to it. I just love it. I could have recorded my taxi driver that he was speeding. It was fantastic. I thought I was on a racetrack. So I could have mic'd up his car before I knew that. I thought it was going to be boring, but he kept me up. So to me, microphones are like ice cream flavors. Okay, I like vanilla. I like chocolate, and I know this boy back home who loves garbage. I'm like, what is that? It's a mix of a lot of different flavors, and so to me, it's like that. So when you record weapons, it's a mix of things that sound like garbage. Okay, so the more different ones you have, the more options you have for the mix, for the mixes. So I'm going to talk about two things about how to plan to record weapon sounds and to have a lot of variations of these sounds, and also moving on to vehicles. So multiple microphones for both things. Okay, so we're going to talk about planning, what to do before, what to record, where, how. Okay, both things, safety is always number one. When you hire a driver, when you hire an armorer to handle weapons, you always have the safety briefing first, and you always listen, because the wrong person could do the wrong thing. Okay, when I do a multi-weapon session, I always say 10 maximum a day. We always bring extra, just in case. We finish early, hey, let's do 2 more, because we still have daylight. Because when you're out in the middle of the desert, there is no power, there is nothing, no bathrooms. So you need to budget in the amount of daylight. So I like to do in the fall or just before the fall, so you have maximum amount of daylight. Okay, and also if you have machine guns, they take a lot longer. There are a lot more rounds to go through. You could do single shots. You could switch the selector switch and do full automatic shots. So things take longer. If I have a shotgun, that's it. You're getting single shots. But with machine guns, you have to do this and that. So if you have a lot of machine guns, maybe 8 a day, things like that. Okay, and weapons will jam. That's why when we go and shoot, let's say if we plan on 10 a day, I say, hey, bring 15, bring 20, just in case they jam. And so we could put that aside and use the next one. So you're rushing, but you still don't want to over rush, but you want to record as best you can to get best sounds. Okay. Has anybody ever heard of Navy SEAL guys? You know those guys, those tough guys? They're the worst people to bring to a sound recording. No, I want the shots only. Just start fidgeting. So there's a guy I use in Nevada. His name is Daniel. He's not a Navy SEAL. He looks like one, but he's really good. He's really good about, dry fire. Dry fire. So he's good about giving me silence before and after each of the sounds. So don't bring these special forces stuff with you, okay? And again, 10 weapons a day is also noise problems. Montreal is busy. It's a lot of cars and people. You can't do a lot of quiet recordings unless you're in the studio. Right, Simon? Right? Yeah, we know that. And recording equipment. I have a lot of gear. And sometimes you run into problems when it gets too hot, too cold. When it's too cold, battery doesn't work as well. Things like that. So bring extra gear and over record. Over record, I use that term because we have high capacity memory cards. We have a lot, and we have a lot of power. I have a lot of batteries, memory cards. So if I have more time, I will record again and again and again. Okay? That's complicated. The modern rifle has all these things. So your expert, your armorer, could tell you, this is the sound of the charging handle. Okay, so when you name your files, you want to write these things down so you know what you're naming them. Okay, the things you attach to the front of a weapon, it's a suppressor. It's not a silencer. You can still hear it, by the way. So proper terms will make a great sound. You get a lot of pew 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 sounds. So then you can ask the armor what to record. He says, oh, if you use this kind of ammunition here, it makes it sound more interesting. Oh, okay, great. Okay, so what to record? Obviously, we should always record Foley, different sounds, magazine changes, again, dry fire, selector switches. We could put mics on the weapon, close to the weapon, close as in this close, okay, and medium distance, far, and incoming. Incoming is when you put the weapon in, put the mic in front of the weapon, but a little off to the side because you don't want to shoot the microphone. That would be bad. So that's the sound of what's it feel like to be shot at. That's incoming. Okay, and again, if you have, like again, something, let's say it's a full automatic weapon, like an M16, AK-47. You could do, switch it to a single shot. Sometimes you could do a single shot. You just want bang and bang, and then you switch it to full automatic, and you should get short bursts, pa pa pa, pa pa pa, and then long burst. So again, also if you have time, do the extras. You could bring in different brands of ammunition. If you look at a store in America, you have this kind of ammunition, you have that kind of the same caliber, and some of them are faster than others, and speed makes a difference in the sound. And when I use blanks, sometimes I give you a louder boom because it has less gunpowder in there. So, be sure you get a ticket, okay, because you can win free stuff. Okay, so why do we record Foley first? Let me show you a video here. Yeah. So you don't want to do things to the weapon when it's on the fire. And Daniel has gloves on and he's still holding on the back side. So always do Foley first because these things get hot. Just like a vehicle, you want to do things first before weapons and vehicles get hot. It's always first. And you'll want to thank me for that. So I had a client that says, hey, Watson, is that hot? I'm like, yeah. Go ahead and touch it, Henry. Yeah. Okay, yeah, see? It's so hot that Daniel had to put his left hand on the bottom of the magazine because the weapon's on fire. Okay, there's so much gear. It's unbelievable how much gear you can bring. I'm a huge fan of 8-track recorders. You could bring 4-track recorders, but 8 tracks, if you have 4 different guys with stereo recorders, you have to combine all that and put it into your DAW. That's just too much time. It's better if you get a few 8-track recorders, and that way everything goes into that same memory card, so when you copy files, it's just easier. Because when the editor receives a file, it's like, wow, all these different folders from different recorders. You're better off with 2 8-track recorders or just 1 8-track recorder. Yeah, and I recommend Sound Devices. Sound great. And I run long cables using data cable, shielded like a Cat5e or Cat6. And each of these cables can send 4 signals, phantom power. And in theory, you could send 1,900 feet of cabling. That's a lot. So instead of bringing XLR cables, it would just be too much, too expensive and too heavy. So computer data cables, when they're shielded, they're very light, very inexpensive to purchase, and I have several hundred. So windshield kits, that's a given. You go outside, it's windy. And also, the wrong person trips over and your microphone falls over. When it's in the blimp, it's protected. Okay, microphones. There are so many microphones. So a lot of times when you pick up a mic and look at the specification, 140 decibels. Not really true. A lot of times they're measured by music or they play a sine wave out loud. So I've seen things with less rating, 125 decibels, that can handle right next to the weapon. They can take that kind of pounding. So there are a lot of different kinds. I use a lot of different types. I'm a big fan of MS stereo mics. You could have the mid for the mono, and then the side you can mix narrow or wide stereo. So I have a lot of that on all my shoots. Headphones. See the white headphone I'm wearing? I could shoot an AK-47 and hear when I'm shooting at the same time. Okay, so forget your Beats, forget your Sony and Barrett Dynamics, all that stuff, Audiokinetic. I can't do that. You know, they're great for vehicles, but you need that to protect your ears. Right? When I first worked for Charles Deanon on Need for Speed at a racetrack, it was so loud. It was painful. I did not have a good time, and I thought about buying these, and I wish I bought them before that session because they were just painful. Every time the race car came over, I had to put my ear over my shoulder with the mic and press as the car came by. Very painful. And then Charles says, "Watson, record under that bridge." Oh. It means just louder, amplified. Thanks, Charles. Yeah. There are other brands, Direct Audio, Direct Sound. I think it's a lot of drummers use that to isolate. All right? And I'll also bring backups. If you have multiple parties coming with you, they can carry a bag. They can carry a rolling bag. So, you know, Simon could bring the backup recorder. The other Simon could bring, you know, extra blimps. So it's a teamwork. So I've been on jobs where I had to go and grab the backup recorder because things happen. Okay, then stereo mics. So the talk is about raw recordings into a vast number of assets. So you could have 2 mics in the same position, let's say facing the weapon from 10 meters away. Well, that mid could be used with the other mono mic. So then you have more options. You could have mid, narrow stereo, mid, and then wide stereo, and then take that mid side over here and then do more. So you have just huge numbers of potentials. And so because if you do XY stereo, you're kind of stuck with that. It's not really facing the weapon. It's almost like that. Or same thing with RTF. So if you're limited in what you can bring, a little budget or not enough people, bring an MS mic. I highly recommend it. Okay, we're always rushing, so once I get the memory card, I will make a folder, and you see there 788, that's the name of the recorder for sound devices, and I'll name the files folder based on what number of inputs they are, the microphones. So that way I don't have to right away make a spreadsheet because I'm pressing for time. I'm charging batteries, I'm copying files, I'm organizing for the next day. So right away I make that folder and copy and paste into that folder and moving on to other things. So 744 recorder, and I typically put a dash for the conjunction of mid and side for the 58-30, two Sennheiser mics. And later on, when I'm editing, I can name the files according to these: the kind of weapon, the names of the weapons, the calibers, what kind of shots. Are they Foley? Are they dry fire? Or are they magazine insert, magazine out? Long burst, short burst, close perspective, far, version number. Okay? We don't want file 1 .wav file or untitled, right? Untitled is best. Don't want to do that. Also, before you start, you want to name, you want to do the correct date and time for all your recorders. Because I've seen files that was like 1969. Like, what? It was tapes back then. So, here is a fictitious budget, kind of close to some of the things I've done. So if you're dealing with an armor, you might do something like this. You can see that that's a machine gun, 350 rounds. That's a lot. And this is a sniper rifle, 40 rounds. So why so much? Things go very quickly. Armor might bring an assistant. Okay. And in shooting range might require insurance. So I've been to places where I had to rent a range and I had to prove insurance. So I do have liability insurance from now on. So I've been to private properties where I didn't need all that. So that saved us money. All right, that saved us money on the range and the insurance. So if you have good friends with big properties, that's great. Okay, and the recording gear. This stuff costs a lot of money. Okay, it's amazing how much money you spend just for sound, but you need it. You gotta have good equipment to sound great. Okay, so why so much ammunition? That weapon just shot 30 rounds. That was like 2 seconds. So you gotta have, again, I've worked on games where you had single shots, and then you could switch over to full automatic shots. So you want great single shots, you may want 10 great shots, and then ideally from there you could design 10 great shots and variations, and then switch full automatic. Now, in the real world, when soldiers engage each other, they're doing short bursts. Pa, 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 pa. They're not going pa, 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 pa. No, this doesn't work that way. All right, that's when your ammunition's gone, so you have to conserve. So if you want all those variations, well, 300, 400 is a good number, because they will jam, they get hot, and the bad things happen. So you want more, just in case, because we like backups. Okay, locations are very important. You all know that. It's almost like real estate. If you want property right here, it's the best place in the world because you have everything. Well, it's going to cost so much, even though it's a little box. So location. And the actor, Daniel, does a great job. He says, "Shooter ready," and he waits for me to tell him. When I tell him, shoot, and then he waits for silence and he shoots. So again, the actor makes a big difference. Fire. See how he keeps still? He's great at that. So I'm watching the recording guy to let me know when to record, when to shoot. So the first scene was the desert in Nevada. Great for long echoes. If you shoot off a weapon, it's like 14 seconds long of a gun tail. Whereas in Florida, right there, maybe 2 seconds at the most. But the difference is, Florida gives you that more in-your-face, great sound. If you want gun tails, you better go to a desert or somewhere with a lot of concrete. So depending on what your game requires, you may need both locations. Right? Now, if the location's terrible, that's when you want the shotgun microphones to focus on that. So I want the shot, but I don't want all that other sound over there. So that's why we want the shotgun mics to be very focused. We want what we're pointing at. We don't want that and everything else. Okay, so vehicles. Also very complicated, and I believe sometimes it's far more complicated than recording weapons, because there's so much involved to get great sounds. If you have, let's say, a 4-track recorder, the most important thing you want to hear from a car is the engine and the exhaust, right? So maybe you want to put 2 in a firewall and 2 by the exhaust. But if you have a 8-track recorder, 2 in the engine, 2 by the exhaust, and maybe 1 in the cab. That way you get what the driver and passengers hear when they're in the vehicle. So, and from other things I've discovered, I was recording burnout sounds of tires burning out, skidding, drifting, put mics in the wheel well. And that actually worked out well. It picked up nice engine sounds and it picked up nice exhaust sounds. So some of the things you find out by experiments. So experiments are fun. Okay, now for the external sounds, what I'd like to do lately is that I'll handheld a shotgun microphone, like an MS microphone, to get the car following the tracking sounds. At the same time, in the same multi-track recorder, I'll plug in like an ambisonic mic, another 4 channels, or a XY stereo or RTF, and maybe further away from me. That way it will capture all the different types of sounds of following and static sounds. So, just more options. So instead of just doing one thing, you could do 2. Right? So if you could multitask, I recommend that. Do 2 things at a time. Okay, so here is a scenario of what you can do to record the engine and car sounds. And later on, I'll post on my blog all these different lists, or you just take pictures of it. So if you're limited, again, the red. If you're limited, just do, maybe a shotgun mic, an MS stereo mic. And that way, you have 2 memory cards to deal with. Okay, again, also record Foley first. Make sure you get horns, doors, things like that. And driving sounds. First thing I do when I do onboard sounds, when I'm sitting next to the driver, is I have them do a startup and do a bunch of revving. That way I can see the peak of the metering. And then right into it, I'll go into ramps. So, does everybody know what a ramp is in the car? Okay, so if you put the car in first gear and you slowly drive up to the red line of the RPM, and so you ramp up, and that'll take about 10 to 15 seconds. And then you let go of the throttle and let it engine brake back to a complete stop. That's so ramp up, ramp down. And we take these sounds and we plug into certain software tools, and that's what drives the game. So Need for Speed, they've used that for a long time. So when you squeeze the throttle on a game, so the software will shift for you to second gear, third gear, so that right away, when you're hitting the red line of a car, it's really loud. So that's why I go to ramp very quickly, from revving to ramps. And after that, I'll do steady RPMs. So the old technology of vehicle sounds was holding the RPMs, let's say idle, and then you maybe have 1,000 RPM, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So it pitches to the next RPM. So that was the older way. It's kind of sounded sterile, very synthetic. So ramp will give you more of what a real car sounds like. And by doing that, you're saving memory space for the game. It's great. So again, more different things to do. If you have time, yeah, you can do stunts. And if you're recording by yourself, once you get where you see the peak of the recording at action driving, so let's say you did revs, ramps, steady RPMs, and hard, fast driving. Once you get all the levels correctly, you can then get out of the car, seatbelt your recorder to inside the car, hit record, and then jump out and grab another recorder and mic, and at the same time, just let the car go back and forth next to you. That way you could do more externals at the same time. So multitask. Okay. Use a lot of gaff tape. Sometimes these cars are going very fast, well over 100 miles per hour. So you want to be very secure. Take your time to tape down the mic cables and the mics so that they won't come off. Okay? This Ferrari is worth $500,000. Be very careful. So the gaff tape is good. You can put it on a Bugatti. It's okay. It works. All right. So right here is a 5.1 dBm mic and a MS stereo mic. So you could do both at the same time. And with careful taping, you could also record a roller coaster. Okay? A lot of fun. And that was for Planet Coaster right there. More things. So again, folders. Create a folder. All right. After you copy them, you have time. Carefully sit down and type up your spreadsheet with all the details. Channel 1 is this. Channel 2 is that. How far were you? And I often like to speak into the mic. So if I'm recording pass-bys, the car passes me, I'll say, oh, the car was 3 meters away. Okay. And I'll say, okay, the car was 50 meters away. So if you speak into the mic, because a lot of times we have just our smartphone. You don't want to be playing with your phone. Just speak into the mic, and you get all the notes you need. Oh, okay, file names. So I think of naming files as sort of like sound effects libraries. If you name them very correctly, 10 years from now, you can find them. Right? I worked on projects where I had to look back 15 years. Well, I could find it in 20 seconds. That's how quickly. So if you name correctly. Now, I do like SoundMiner, but sometimes when they don't work, or you're taking files from an external hard drive to on-site, you may not have SoundMiner. So it's easier if you just name the files correctly, then you can always find them. Okay. Here's a scenario for recording a vehicle. Okay, $1 million car, a truck, a scooter. You say I have fun with this one. So you may have to rent a track, and again, insurance. Okay. More equipment. So it's almost like the same kind of a budget for recording weapons. And that's how I look at it this way. So if you have multiple recorders, time code so that each of the recorders will be synced to one time, and that way during editing you could see all that. It'll make it easier for the editor. And again, speaking to the mic. I like recorders that you could twist on a knob, listen to what's recording. So if I have 8 microphones plugged into my recorder, I could twist a knob and go, I'm hearing a firewall by itself. Twist again. I'm hearing air intake by itself. Twist quickly. I want to hear what's happening to the last exhaust mic. So if I could hear each one very clearly and they sound good, I'm doing my job. You don't want to listen to it when it's everything into a stereo mix. Can you imagine listening to 16 inputs in stereo? You're not going to hear the detailed problems. Sometimes you have to fine tune to say, hey, this sounds better here. This sounds better there. Okay? Of course, all this happens. Have a good time. Now, what to record? Just because a car looks great doesn't mean it will sound great. A friend of mine got to record a very special Camaro, a very fast Camaro. And after the session, I asked him, how did it go? How was that Camaro? He said, it sucked. The exhaust system, they told me, was great. It sounded like the guy was farting the entire time. I'm like, so cool looking car, but exhaust sounded terrible. So you want to hear the car first, hear the weapon first before you decide. And just because it's a cool looking handgun doesn't mean it sounds good. So I tend to like larger caliber weapons. They have that beefy sound. So listen first. And the armor could tell you, hey, this weapon sounds great. Don't record that one. Sometimes they have a good year. Okay. Very different mics, very different responses. So a lot of low end you can use. So that was incoming. That's what it sounds like when you're being shot at. So you can have all that with one 8-track recorder or two 8-track recorders. Here is a sniper rifle. Pretty far. Very basic. So you want things that capture high frequencies, low frequencies, the mid, even some distortion. It could be added to the mix. Here's an M60 machine gun. It's a belt-fed machine gun. Oops. Probably one of my favorite sounding weapons. You hear that distinctive high pitch there. Hear that? Two with the same placements. See how different they sound? So there's a lot you can do by having really a lot of multi-channel mics. So if you want your weapon to sound like it's far, well, yeah, the mic has to be placed very far from the shooter. here. This is one of my very successful libraries. I want to play for you a collage of what it sounds like. That was from a 2-day session. So in 2 days, you could have something that sounds like this. Hear the tail, that's definitely Nevada. So yeah, 2-day session. You can have a lot to play with. Ah, okay, vehicles. This was for Project Cars 2. Has anybody played Project Cars 2 game? One person? Oh, 2? Okay. I was recording a race car. It was the most violent car I've ever been in. It was a Honda Civic. But it was a Red Bull rally race car, Honda Civic. 0 to 60 miles per hour. In 1.9 seconds. That's faster than Bugatti Veyron. And it jumps. So I'm in the car. You know, there's no passenger seat, so I'm sitting next to the driver, who was 18 years old. Oh, he was so fast. So it's good to have a good recording bag where the recorder is very tight inside. You know, there's nothing to hold on to in the race car, so I'm getting thrown around as we're doing spins and jumps and donuts and stuff. And 1 hour after recording, my hands were still shaking. It was awesome. Loved it. Okay, but you need to play that game. It's great. So that's a ramp. So I tell the driver, put the car in first gear, smoothly drive up to the red line, maybe hold it there for a second, and then engine brake all the way back to complete stop. So you want several versions of that. And that way you could take that, put it into Rev or similar programs, and be able to have the software shift for you. So we do several versions of that. And it's great. So sometimes every car is different. Some cars, like an actor, they perform well or not. So you might have to ramp a lot slower, push on the gas or throttle very slowly to get up to the red line RPM, or you have to push harder to get it up there. So every car is different. Of course, a race car driver had to tell him to slow down for the ramps. He wasn't having that. Yeah. Here's engine by itself. So no exhaust sounds, just engine. Here is the cab. So the mic was right above the driver. So you hear him shifting. It's got sequential shifters, very metallic, very cool sounding. And here is exhaust number 1. And then exhaust number 2. You hear how different they are? Two different microphones in the same placement. So you could, if you're playing Need for Speed, you could win a race, get that money, and upgrade your exhaust, racing exhaust, get a bigger engine. So when we have multiple microphones, you can then create a different mix, make it sound meaner when you upgrade your car to the maximum capacity. So you might have 3 mics at exhaust, and combining them and creatively and double the octave. If you double the octave, you make it sound bigger. It's almost like music. You could double the bass, you can add octaves to the music, and it makes the music a lot bigger. So, and that's Project Cars. Now, here is a commercial I worked on. And I got into games first, then I got into commercials. And I approach film and TV the same as I do games. It's always going to be about the engine, exhaust, all that stuff. Same thing with weapons. So I look at film as though as I was working on a game. This car is fast. Not as violent as the Honda Civic, but it was the official Mercedes driver who was so good. And this was in Vancouver last year. We had mics on board. We had an ambisonic mic in the middle of the racetrack, and I assigned the engineer my 4-track recorder so he could do MS and shotgun mono mic at the same time, doing the passing sounds. And here is a little behind the scenes of us in the car. Hold on. When we got out of the car, I think the guy's heart rate was like 60 and mine was like 120. And it was like nothing to him. He was the best driver I've ever seen. And this is the commercial for the, it's called Hearing is Believing. So that was in the Dolby Atmos movie theater in Canada only. I'm like, bummer, I couldn't watch or listen to my work in movie theater. But that was the YouTube version mixed in stereo. But maybe one day I'll get to see it when it's done. Okay, this is oh, I gotta play one file, excuse me. This is a Dodge Charger I recorded for Need for Speed some years ago. Probably one of the best favorite cars I recorded. It sounded so good. It had nitrous. You think you're watching one of those racing movies. So I had several mics in there. We did ramps, we did steady RPMs, And I was told later on by other people who worked in EA, doing Need for Speed, that they kept going back to that. Every time they needed a V8 powerful American muscle car, they would always go back to the Dodge Charger recordings and design from there different V8 cars. So here are two Dodge Charger and Challenger using those same sounds. That's a bit closer. Yeah. So you hear the engine, the sounds keeps going up to the red line, the intensity of the cars, and it keeps going and it shifts from there. It sounds like you could always shift to 20th gear. It just, there's a rise of energy. So it is about the rise of energy for vehicles. When you core ramps, you're going up to the red line, red line, and then the software will take over and keep doing that. So, and then just, if you have an open road, just keep driving, keep shifting. So that's what's great about the Need for Speed series and things like that, project cars. So in the future, when you have all these recordings, you could bring in a special sound designer. You could bring somebody like Simon, who has a totally different approach to sound design from people in the company. So he will do something, they'll go, we like that. So they copy his technique of using those sounds in his way for the next titles. So if you have a problem, oh, we can't get the budget, and they won't give us the budget to get fresh recordings, well, you could tell them, we're going to use these again and again. We're going to make it sound different every time, but we need to get great recordings. So, and also you could talk to marketing department. Well, we get great behind the scenes of us recording the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, the AK-47s, things like that. And there are more plugins than ever to make great sounds, right? And great tools, Audiokinetic, Weaponizer, all these different things that enhance the sound.